behind it and scare it.
We're here back at it again for another episode of TDS, and today we're going to be talking about a tower I featured a very long time ago. In short, it's very similar to the Assassin Tower, and that is the Gladiator. So just like how I mentioned, I pretty much covered this guy like over a year ago, or somewhere around this point, very similarly, before I believe it was the Hexscape event, and this guy was generally considered one of the most dead towers in this entire game. I would even argue it's probably even more dead than the Frost Blaster, and the big reason why is mainly because the Frost Blaster actually got buffed with some more changes to it. The Gladiator, on the other hand, when I actually went to go check if he actually got any new changes apart from, skins, was on the 9th of April this year. However, it was literally just an offense role added, which I have no idea what that means. And aside from that, the very last thing he was even given was a whole year ago on the 16th of December. That was it. This guy has not received any actual changes from a huge amount of time. However, I think it's best we describe what the Gladiator even does for people who don't really have him or have just completely forgotten what he even does, because at this point everyone just forgets he's even in the game at this point. So basically, he's a melee tower, very cheap to place down at around 300, pretty much exactly the same as the Assassin, and the Gladiator can actually swing and does very low damage with every single swing of his sword. However, can damage many enemies at the exact same time with a single slash from his sword, making it to where he is pretty okay-ish at dealing an okay-ish amount of damage to many spammed enemies. However, this man does an unfathomably low amount of damage to pretty much any enemies. Now, of course, if you upgrade him, he gets stronger and stronger and stronger. However, the most amount of damage this motherfucker does at max is 40 damage at max. Now, obviously, this is 40 damage between like all the enemies he's slicing with a single slice from his sword, and of course, his rate of fire speed is dramatically increased to where he can actually like rapidly deal a huge amount of damage in a very short amount of time, especially when this man also has an ability to which he can, for a short temporary amount of time, increase his rate of fire, or more or less melee swing of fire, I don't really know, with his swords, and just deal even more damage in a short amount of time. However, that's pretty much it for the Gladiator. He is, quite honestly, in this day and age, just not that good at all. Now, obviously, something you want to do for, like, I guess, a strategy for the Gladiator is essentially just placing as many as them down all around the path, and probably even more together, so you can get a much more bigger amount of damage, I guess you can do for enemies. However, when enemies have tens of thousands to just thousands of HP, the Gladiators are simply just like trying to kill them with a plastic knife. Like, the damage is just completely terrible against these super strong enemy bosses, or at least mini bosses, especially with the ones who can actually attack, like for an example, the Fallen Guardians. And just to point out something else is that the Assassin is quite honestly much better than the Gladiator, okay? This man at max deals 30 damage, 10 less than the Gladiator, same swing rate as I guess you could say. However, with this massive swing slash spam attack he does every single 3 swings, I'm pretty sure, and also him being able to literally throw knives at enemies dealing bonus damage, he is honestly just downright more preferred and actually more reliable than the Gladiator. Now, also, he doesn't really do a huge amount of damage just like the Gladiator. However, just like the Gladiator, as long as you spam them down with a few decent amount of them, you can get some pretty good value from this guy more than the Gladiator. However, something else that I am just genuinely like curious about is if this Gladiator dude is even gonna get at all a rework. We literally got a Commando rework, I believe, last year, and quite honestly, he's pretty good-ish now, but I mean, still not really, no one really uses him. However, very recently, we've got some big buffs and balance changes for the Hunter, or the Bowmaster, or whatever the fuck his name is, and we even got a big, massive rework for him. which originally, back before all of these changes, he was just completely dead. No one used him at all. And now, he's quite honestly pretty good. After all of these pretty low and completely extinct towers have now gotten their reworks and have just been better and better, is it finally time for the Gladiator's turn to become good again? Probably or probably not, I don't really know, but hopefully he does, because quite honestly, even though he's not terrible, like D tier or something like that, or probably even D tier, but not necessarily F tier, he still just requires so much more like buffs and just downright a better rework to really make this game just as powerful as he was in his prime, which I believe was way before the Fallen game mode even got rebalanced and just general changes to everything. Back then, he was literally in his prime. He was one of the best and most picked towers in the game. But ever since Fallen got reworked entirely, he had just fallen from grace. Aside from all of what I just rambled about, the Gladiator is like really bad in this game, especially the current climate of it, where there's just enemies with tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of HP, and him doing literally 40-ish damage per slice attack. It is literally unusable, okay? This is one of those towers that is the most dead in the entire game that it desperately needs a rework. Like, at this point, no buffs can even fix it. He just needs a rework in this point. And since all of the other more dead towers also got reworked and just downright buffs and changes, like the Hunter or the Bowmaster, whatever his name is, the Frost Blaster, I feel like it's time for the Gladiator's turn to hopefully return back to his prime as he used to be like 4 whole years ago.